Hey guys, and welcome to Manufacturing with Mr. Horsefall. Today we're going to be talking about making this top project. I'm going to break it down into a few steps, and then we will show some machining videos where I further explain this. Our first step to make this top is going to be to take our piece of material that we probably have cut at about 2 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to machine it down to 2 inches long. So we're going to do that by taking cuts off of either end to make it perfectly smooth and to length. Once we have got our part to length, we're going to turn our handle. So we're going to start at 1 inch with the diameter of our stock and machine that down to a 250 thou or 1/4 inch diameter. Once we have machined our handle down to 250 thou or 1/4 inch, we're going to finish this face right here. This face is what's going to finish our length of 1.25 inches from the end. Once we have finished that length, we're going to take a file and we're going to round the end of our handle to put this nice round radius on it. Once you've put your round radius on here, I want you to ever so slightly break this corner up here. It will be sharp right now, and we do not want to have sharp corners. After this is done, you can give this handle a polish with some emery cloth in the lathe, and then we will turn the part around. Once we turn the part around, we're going to hold the part on the handle. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a wrap of paper around the handle to protect it from the chuck. That's going to help us keep that nice, shiny, polished finish you just created. Next, we will turn our compound rest to 45 degrees. With our compound rest at 45 degrees, we're going to touch the figurative corner out here. And we're going to take cuts with the compound rest until we form a point. We don't need to actually measure this diameter. We're just turning it until we form a point. Once we have formed the point, we're going to take a file and ever so slightly round the very tip of the top so that the top has something to spin on. We're also going to round right here. This little corner is going to have a sharp edge. Our first step is going to be to end face our part to length. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to touch our tool to the end of the spinning part and then take a cut across the face using the cross feed. Once we've finished the first side, what we're going to do is we're going to spin the part around. With the part spun around, we're going to face the second side too. It's not until we've faced both faces and have them machined that we'll be able to get a truly accurate measurement of the overall length. Of our part, we're able to get an accurate measurement. So we'll put the piece back in the lathe and we'll lightly touch the end with the tool. And then we'll zero the Z-axis of our digital readout. We're going to rely on the Z-axis to dictate our depths of cut to get us to finished size. We had approximately 0.180 inches left on this, so we're going to follow our readout until we get close to 0.180 inches. And close to negative 0.180 inches, we're going to measure the overall length of the part again. We need to pull the part out of the lathe to do this. So after we have pulled it out, we're going to touch the end face. Zero our readout. And then we're going to dial our final cut to finish our overall length. In this case, we had just over 30 thou to take. I'm going to take 30 and call that close enough for this part. After we've taken our final cut, we are able to pull our part out one last time, measure it, and verify our overall length. step is going to be to turn our handle to diameter. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch the end, zero our readout on the z-axis again, move over to our 1.25 inch length, or just before it, and put a small stripe in the outside of our part. What this stripe is going to do is it's going to give us a stop line. This is the line you stop your auto feed at every time as you're taking your cuts. Our next step is going to be to touch the outside of our part, zero our x-axis on the readout, and take a small skim cut. What you're going to do is you're going to measure this skim cut with your calipers and then adjust the x-axis of our digital readout accordingly. Do this by touching the top black button, entering the diameter you measured with your calipers, and pressing enter. This will give us a direct reading to go all the way through as we take our cuts. I'm going to take 50 thou cuts all the way until I get to 350 thousandths of an inch, which is 100 thousandths of an inch over our finished size. If you are using one of the older lathes that does not have a digital readout, you will have to rely on the collar on the cross slide to dial your cut depths. These collars read just as accurately as a digital readout. Keep taking your cuts as you go through your diameters until you get to 350 thousandths of an inch. As you approach 350 thousandths of an inch in diameter, you will stop and measure after you take your cut at 0.350. We are doing this to ensure we do not cut our handle undersized. When you hit 0.350 or 100 thou above your finished size, stop and measure your part and adjust your readout if necessary. We will finish the diameter of our piece in 2 finishing cuts. We're going to take 2 approximately 50 thou finished cuts, and we're going to measure between each of them to make sure we are approaching our size. We can never be too careful as we start to approach sizes. The diameter of a top handle might not be particularly fussy, but the next diameter you cut might have to be. Be sure to stop and measure between your finished cuts. We want to make sure we're going to be as accurate as possible. Ensure there is your 50 thou left on there. You're going to dial your finished cut right down to size and take that cut. This is our last cut on diameter, and then we will finish the face. So long as we have measured our diameters correctly all the way along and adjusted the readout accordingly, we should be right at 250 thou in diameter or 1/4 inch. Be sure to rock your calipers back and forth slightly to ensure you measure an accurate size. Next, we're going to finish the length of the handle. We're going to do this by facing that shoulder created closest to the chuck. We're going to go to negative 1.25 in the z-axis, and then we're going to face that shoulder down to 250 thou, or 1/4 inch. By using a lathe without a digital readout, you can use the collar on the compound rest to set this length. Once you have finished the length of the handle, use a lathe file to round the end of it. Hold the file in your left hand so you do not have to reach over the lathe chuck, and place it on the end of the handle. Push it forward and slowly rotate it away from the chuck to produce a round profile. Once you have rounded the end of your handle, take a small piece of emery cloth and polish your handle to remove the file marks and to create an even and uniform finish. Remember to only hold the emery cloth with the tips of your fingers. Once you are happy with the surface finish on your handle and feel you have polished it enough, we're going to turn it around and hold on that handle so that we can put the pointy end or the spinning end of the top on. Don't forget to put a small piece of paper around the freshly machined handle to protect it from the lathe jaws. To cut the taper, we first have to loosen the two bolts, one on the front and one on the back of the compound rest. Half a turn is enough. Then rotate the compound rest to 45 degrees. This is marked on the front of the compound rest. Tighten the bolts back down, and you are ready to cut your taper. I like to rotate the tool post to realign the tool. This is not always necessary though. Never use the large hand wheel on the front of the carriage when cutting a taper. Line the tool up with the corner and start taking cuts using the cross slide and the compound rest hand wheels. This will produce the point or our taper that will give your top and end to spin on. Keep cutting until you form a point. Note, always use the compound rest and cross slide hand wheels. The trick to getting a good finish is to go in smooth and steady motions with the compound rest hand wheel. Sometimes you can use two hands and pass it from one to the other without ever letting it stop moving. Keep taking cuts until the end of your top forms a point. You will likely have to take a couple of small cuts at the end to make sure you get a full point. Feeding in a smooth and steady motion will help to get a good surface finish on your top. Our final step will be to file and polish our top. What we're going to do is we're going to pull the top slightly forward in the chuck so it's not sitting right against the jaws. Use a file to round the top and put a ever so slightly round on your point on the end of the top. Next, you will take emery cloth and polish your top to a finish you are happy with. Remember, only hold the emery cloth in your fingertips.